and sales at the market. So I'm going to try and keep this presentation. If you see me glance over my shoulder, I'm looking at my clock to make sure that I'm keeping things to about 50 minutes so that we have about, 10 minutes for discussion. But again, since it's a small group, if you feel like you just want to ask a question, just dive in, unmute yourself, dive in. In fact, there's a little interaction anyway, so you're going to be forced to talk. So let's just dive right in. So today we're going to talk, it's kind of a crash course in branding and why it matters to your business. Then we're going to talk about how to kind of integrate your brand into what you do at the farmer's market. This is a farmer's market specific presentation. So we're really talking about how to build your brand and then bring it to market with you. So we'll go over, 5 ways to brand your market booth, and then some product display and sales tips. So what is branding? So Erica has already seen this, so she can't chime in, but I would ask Brenda and Erica Rutland if you have anything that you notice about this image. Just anything that might stand out to you or any observations.
It's stylized.
Yes, it's stylized. It looks like a sketch. Anything you notice in the image at all that jumps right out at you?
Families of cows. I mean, I see the young cow over here, and it's black and white.
Yes. I really enjoy doing this because people have found things I have not before. Someone once noticed there's a little rabbit in the corner. I had not noticed that. Another person had said before that it looks like the cows some of them really need a milking. Would agree with that.
That's what I was thinking.
Anything else to notice about this image?
There's a farmer coming to milk the cows right now over in the upper right. And you can see the city in the background. So it's plenty and production.
Yes, that's a nice way to describe it. So I'll end this exercise because the whole point is that there's really not much that jumps out at you. We kind of have to struggle to say anything of interest here. But now what do you see?
Purple cow.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to think about it. Jumps out at you. You don't have to analyze it. It's immediate, right? I mean, that's why you laughed, Erica. It's like, it's purple cow. So this is a quote I just love. The key to success is to find a way to stand out, to be the purple cow in a field of monochrome Holsteins. So it's an agriculture reference, but Seth Godin's a big marketing guy, a thought leader in marketing. And I think this is just wonderful because you are all not the only farmers or producers at your market. So your goal is to do things and present yourself in a way that sticks out. So that's what we're going to really focus on today. And that's why I went through that exercise. So what is branding? It really is, it's who you are. It's your personality. People have a personality. Businesses have brands. So it's going to make your good or service distinct from other sellers. Again, we want to stand out. That's the goal here. Erica Rutland, I'm glad. Brenda, I don't know about you if you have an established business. I know Erica Malmgreen does. But if you're starting from scratch, a business name is kind of at the core of your brand. So you want it to have personality or meaning or meaning. You want it to really be purposeful. After you have your business name, then you want to build a visual representation of that, which is your logo. A tagline can help people understand what you do. Typography is the font you're going to use in your print materials. And believe it or not, fonts can say a lot about who you are. Colors, we're going to go over colors. Those are important too. And then really your attitude and personality. And are you humorous? Are you serious? And when I say you, I mean your brand, your business. What's your persona? How do you interact with customers? And that's all going to compose your brand. So again, this is kind of, I've given presentations on branding that, you know, are 3-part series. So this is really condensed version. I like to talk about the roots of branding. The word it's actually from a Viking word. So it's an Old Norse word. And that was, you know, you can think of that as it meant to burn. So, you know, burning a brand onto wood or whatnot. And then in American agriculture, we all know the brand is, you know, the cattle brand. And if you look here at the Texan cattle brands, they're all very, very simple. So I like to emphasize the simplicity of a good brand. And we're going to get into that too. And when I say simple, I don't mean simple-minded. You don't need to, just because something is simple and to the point does not mean that it didn't take a lot of thought and effort. Some of the best brands out there are very, very simple, like the FedEx brand. I'm just saying that because FedEx truck drove by, but it has an arrow in it. It's got an arrow if you look at it, and you know, you just think forward, it's on the move, it's, you know, delivering to me. It's a very simple logo. You can probably close your eyes and see what 2 colors are in the FedEx logo. So simplicity is good with branding. This is kind of my take on branding, that it kind of involves 2 other key things, which you want to have an emotional connection. Your brand should make people feel something. With my business, Centermost Marketing, my goal is to make you feel like I'm your trusted advisor and the centermost point that you can turn to when you need marketing help. So I want people to feel secure and that they can trust in me. So I want some emotional connection. And again, Erica Rutland, I know we're talking about the name for your business might evoke humor and lightheartedness. I think that's wonderful because that's one thing. You know, you're not trying to be a bunch of different things. You want to have something fun and approachable. So you want to first establish an emotional connection so people feel something. Then you want it to be easy to remember. You don't want a complicated name or symbol. Again, the simpler the better. So you've got that emotional connection. You're easy to remember. Because of those 2 things, you are remarkable. And I want to break down that word remarkable. You know, you've made a mark on someone's mind, and therefore they're going to talk about you. And that's what we all want as business owners. We want to be talked about because that's how we grow. That's so important at the farmers market too, because you want word of mouth to build and people to say, oh, have you been to, you know, Winterton Farms booth, or have you been to the Goonie Birds, you know, stand? So you want to be remarkable. So that's kind of how I see good branding work. If you think of a company you really love or a product you really love, it's probably something that's easy to remember, easy to picture, easy to share. And that's what we want for you. So this has come up a lot is, well, why does this matter? Isn't it just like playing around with images and names? And, you know, we're kind of in an adult, you know, sandbox playing around. And that's not true at all. Branding is so important for business success. There have been a lot of studies that with a strong brand that people are very loyal. With loyalty also comes less sensitivity if you need to raise your prices, which is really important because especially in agriculture, things go up and down. So when you're more loyal, you're not so concerned about those price increases. As we talked about, people are more inclined to talk about you because you're remarkable, because your brand can be remembered. If someone can't remember your name and they say, oh, that booth down there that has the, you know, quail eggs. Well, what if there's 3 others? You know, so you need to make sure that you are memorable and remarkable. And then finally, again, differentiating yourself from the competition. Like I just said, you want to stand out. You want to be unique. This is also really important. And I find this when I work with farmers because I'm not a farmer myself, but I work with them and I see how hard they work. It's no joke. I think farmers are probably the hardest working people year round, day in, day out. So there's this, I think, almost, it's like when farmers go to market that they want to almost say, you know what, I'm so busy. I don't have time to get my signs out. I don't have time to put on like a clean shirt. I'm not generalizing, but I have seen this. And it's sort of like, I am so busy. I don't have time. And it's almost pride. You know, I've worked so hard. Why should I, clean up and do that when I'm, so busy? It's dangerous because the general public they actually think the opposite. They think, well, you must be lazy if you can't change, or they don't understand necessarily how hard you're working, that you've been up since 4 a.m. harvesting for that day. So it's so important to look your best. And that doesn't just mean apparel, which we'll get into, but, your products, you want to get them looking as good as possible. And a brand can really help take you further. So you want to make sure that you remember perception is reality. So people perceive what they see at market. They don't get to see your farm. They don't get to see all the quality control measures you have. They're judging you by what they see that day. That's reality. So back to strong brands. You've probably already kind of picked up on these 3 things, but I'm going to dive into some examples, but they're unique. They have a story behind the name and the logo. They're memorable, and the easiest test is close your eyes. So think of your favorite brand, close your eyes. Can you picture it? And that should be for your business as well. Like CC Sullivan, you can close your eyes. You see that logo. You don't need to work hard to do it. Consistent. So once you create your brand, you don't want to mess with it. You want to leave it. And I always tell people, if they have a brand, even if it's like in their own words, terrible, sometimes I say just keep it, because you know what? It may not be the best brand, but it's known, and it over time has built up some brand equity, we call it. So in that case, you might just want to refresh it. So if you have maybe a name that you're like, I don't love it, but people know it, it's out there. Consistency is I would say 1/3 of what makes a good brand. So, branding, you can't be remarkable if you're changing your name. If people are at the market and say, oh, go see that booth down there. I can't remember their name because they changed it last year. So these are the 3 rules to judge your brand by. So I'm just going to show you a few examples. This is a local farm around me. I'm in the Syracuse area, and it's called Wake Robin Farm. And I didn't know this, but a Wake Robin is a trillium flower. It's another name for it. And it's just a really nice, it's a small family farm. And part of their story is that the cows graze where the trilliums, there's a nice trillium blossoming in the spring. And it's such a nice image. So you see they have the red from the signature burgundy from a trillium flower on all their packaging. So it's really nice and stands out. So that, I think, is a nice example of how a story can tie into a brand. I feel so bad. I found this years ago, but it's great. So just look at it for 2 seconds and then close your eyes and see if you can see anything. I'll do it because I always like to, I'm closing my eyes right now. All I can see is there's a crab, I think, in the logo. Yeah, I mean, you can't remember this logo. You can't. It's not memorable. There's too much going on. And I see that with farmers that produce a lot of different things. And Erica Rutland, this will be a challenge for you, I think, if you're doing multiple things. You want to get that simplified down as much as you can. St. Mary's Soil Conservation District here is trying to show every possible thing in their district. And the result is a mess and something that's not remarkable or memorable. I like this logo with the hidden exclamation mark in the middle. This is a Ostrich cider. I think they're in I can't remember exactly where they are. I know they're in the Catskills and they're at some of the markets there. But this is an easy one. If you close your eyes, you can probably see it. John Deere. This is a great example of consistency. If you look at their logo from 1876 and then look at it today, we've got a deer. They haven't even changed the direction of the deer. He's always going to the left. This is also great too, because their name is in their logo. So the word deer, they have a deer. So doubling up on that is just going to make you more memorable. So if you had the name tomato in your brand, using red or emphasizing that and building up on it is going to be great for memory and recall. So where to get help with branding? I would encourage you to hire a designer. A brand isn't cheap, but you know, maybe there's a freelance designer that you could get, you know, a logo and some basic branding elements for, you know, probably around $1,000. I never can quote. You know, big companies can spend 6 figures on a brand, but if you work hard to find someone that you trust and like, and maybe they're just starting out, maybe you know someone and you're lucky and you can get them to do it for free, that would be great. But it's something you don't want to skimp out on. We've kind of gone over a couple of these things. Don't go online and look up Google Images and try and find something for inspiration, because you'll end up accidentally copying it. So start fresh, do some sketching, brainstorming with someone you trust. I don't like crowdsourcing. There's things where you can go online and have people bid and make you a logo, and you only pay for the one that you end up buying. The trouble with that is, because there's designers doing work for free, a lot of them will copy things, and that can be a lawsuit and the works. So those are just some of my tips for getting help. And I'm going to pause here if anyone has any questions or comments. It's like I'm doing okay.
I just want to say hi, because
Hi, Brenda.
A minute to get settled. I needed to make tea. So
what?
And you asked Lindsay if I had a business, and I do have a business. I have a farm, and I'm calling it Bee Wild, BEE Wild.
Love it.
I have some ideas for a logo, but I'm way behind on this stuff, and I'm going to be selling stuff this year, so I need to get it together.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the.
But I'm wild farming, so there's the wild.
I see. That's excellent.
And there's wild pollinators, bees.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to say that and say hi, and sorry I was.
Yeah, I was going to ask, and actually, since we're all on, let's just take a quick minute. If Erica, who both spell their name with a K, can just share what their business is or will be, and then we'll dive into the next section.
Hi, I'm Erica Rutland. I'm out of Western New York, and I want to sell feta cheese and down the line, different kinds of eggs in our local markets. And I'm thinking about the name Goonie Birds, but I'm concerned that I might have issues with spelling. People won't necessarily know how to type it into a search engine, things like that. But I like the image. I can see the image in my mind. A cartoon bird just having a good time.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm Erica Malmgreen, and I'm the owner of Winterton Farms out of Bloomingburg, and we do maple, lavender, and produce.
I think Erica's brand, which we'll see in a moment, is a great example of picking one product to highlight. They do maple and other items, but we'll see which one made it into their logo, because their logo is memorable because it's not overcrowded. So thank you, everyone. Oh,
Lindsay, I have a question, maybe on behalf of the group or on behalf of others. Could you maybe speak to some of the new applications such as Canva that help you with logo design into what you just said, in terms of, maybe taking another logo that already exists, or concerns or thoughts on that, since there are a few platforms that are gaining popularity and people use.
I think, there's no replacing turning to a professional, because they're going to help you see things you don't see in yourself. With Canva, it's free and there's logo creators, but you're still using your own ideas, or maybe they'll show you some, but it's a computer. It's not a person, and it's not a person that's going to get to know what you're trying to do. And I think that that's very, very important, because it's like you're kind of designing in a vacuum, and it's tempting because it's free or very cheap, but you don't get that outside professional opinion. So going to a designer, they're going to ask questions, some tough questions sometimes, like, who are you trying to reach? Because maybe, you love a certain look. Maybe you love the color pink. You just love pink. You're known for loving pink. And yet you're trying to target, maybe you're selling whiskey. And, we all know ladies love to drink whiskey too, but, in general, it's going to skew a little more male. So you either got to own that pink and find a way to work with it, or, maybe you need to realize it's just because it's your business doesn't mean your brand needs to reflect you personally. It needs to tell its own story. It's not your personal story. It's the story of your business. And sometimes those things are very different. So, you might end up with a pink whiskey logo, and then you wonder why, you're having trouble selling it. And it's because someone didn't ask those tough questions, like, who are you trying to reach? Or like Erica Rutland was saying, she's in an area where people don't really care about foodies. They're not foodies. They're not really into sophisticated. They want good quality, affordable food, and they're not wanting anything fancy. So maybe Erica is fancy and wants to do, like artisan craft cheese or feta cheese, but her audience says, I don't care about that. So I think that's a great question, Ashley, because you want that feedback. You need someone to guide you through. So
great. Thank you, Lindsay.
Yep.
Very helpful.
So now we're going to get into, we're going to head to the market. We're going to get out of the headspace here of, what a brand is and how does it look when you bring it to the market. My biggest piece of advice since the market season's starting up is if you're getting anything new and you've got a budget, do not waste it on anything that's not branded. You have an opportunity to put your logo on things, and it doesn't often cost much extra. There are times when a display or a market presentation is so nice that people will actually take a picture, post it on Instagram. So you're getting that extra exposure. So think of it as a photo op every time you set up your booth at the market. So we're going to start with Winterton Farms that I took from Erica's Instagram page, because they have a purple tent because they sell lavender. So I just love this because it's so iconic. It sticks out. It's using color as a brand. So color is, we talked about it briefly with the FedEx logo, the purple and orange, but think of your favorite logo again, or your favorite brands, Starbucks, you've got the green, Dunkin' Donuts, you've got the brown and pink. I mean, any strong brand has a strong association with color. So thinking with your logo, so Brenda, maybe if you did the Be Wild and you have a bee in your logo, maybe you can find a way to do a black and yellow striped tent. So there's different ways that you can use your color throughout your product display. Tablecloths, actual containers. There's a lot going on here that is purple. I have no idea where this farm is, but I absolutely love their display. The black tent is really neat because it looks sophisticated, looks foodie, and they are selling venison. So I think that, you think, oh, I'm at a farmer's market, I got to be earthy, crunchy. Well, no, not necessarily. It depends on what you're selling and who you're selling to. I also love, I believe that's just pallet wood in front of the table. And I think this is really cool because it creates a sense of permanency where you obviously just have a fold-up table here. And their colors, they use logos, or they use the color from their logos, the brown and the black, and they carry it through. So I think this is just a really well-branded tent. I took this years ago at the Syracuse, or the Central New York Regional Market, and these guys were selling dough, and I love the simplicity here of that, that Italian checkered tablecloth. I think that's wonderful. It's something you could get at a party store probably for 99 cents, and you can wipe it off. But I think that is just smart and simple branding. Over here with the Mumbling Mountain, they use products from trees, or create products from trees. And they have a really beautiful display here with the tree stump. So thinking about ways that you can take your brand and bring it to life on your table display is great. You've got to use a tablecloth. It really just shows that you're presenting and you're merchandising. You'll know next time you go to a farmer's market, the tables that don't have a tablecloth, it just looks like they threw it out. It's that perception is reality. They didn't care enough to set the table for guests. That's kind of subconsciously what that says. This is a really simple setup. This is Aaron Burr Cidery. They just use a cider barrel, but it works. It's approachable. It's casual. Is at the Rock Hill Market. So I think that's a fun way to show their brand. This is the Fayetteville. Oops, I shouldn't have said where it is. But it's a market that, unfortunately, I took this picture and I realized later, no one has a branded tent. So I don't know what anyone's selling. And I took this picture from, just maybe 30, 40 feet away. I mean, I should be able to know what I'm looking at and where I want to go. So this is a lost opportunity. There actually was one brand, but I covered it up because it was so small just to make my point. But basically, you don't have to pay a lot more to get your logo on a tent. You could even put a banner up over, hang it in the back, hang it out front. If you're allowed to, put a sandwich board out. But this is a lost opportunity for these 4 businesses right here. Signage doesn't have to be complicated. I always, Beaver Dam Brook Farms, they've had that sign for years, but you know what? It's got a picture of the beaver. It says who they are, and they always put it up. And I think that's important to do. Again, you may be rushed, but put your sign up. Sarai's Kitchen, she has contact information. That's nice. Her logo's colorful, but it's just, you've got to have that one main sign for sure. I love Good Fine Farms logo. It's so simple, but it's so different. It's not green. They sell produce, but they use red. And I think you can sometimes flip things around and surprise people with your brand. And that can be, remember, we want that emotional connection. I think this makes you smile. It's goofy. It's 2 eyes looking at, the food. It's lighthearted. It's not pretentious at all. And they sell that. They do really good business, I think. Whenever I see them, they're bustling. But anyway, you can take your brand and then bring it. Don't just stop with your main sign. You can do smaller signs like this week's Good Find down below. I thought that's a really clever way to merchandise. So studies show that you want to set out at least a picture of your farm, at least one. But a photo album is great so people can see where your food is from, because that's something you can't get at your local Wegmans or Price Chopper, or Aldi. Typically, maybe sometimes they're getting smarter and they'll put pictures of the originating farm. But in general, that is not something you can get at the grocery store. So it's something unique to being at a farmer's market. And it also is something people can look at while they're waiting if you're really busy. So these were just 2 examples of photos of the farm and how it can show where you're from, and because people want to know that. So apparel, I mentioned earlier, you've got to put on a clean outfit. That's just, it is so important, but you get extra bonus points if you put on a shirt or wear apparel that is at least the color of your logo. So maybe your logo's red, so you wear a red shirt or a red apron. But even better if you can get your logo on a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or even a hat. But I just love this Muthic Farms. It's a clean shirt. It's the color of the maple container. He's even got the New York maple hat on. It just shows he cares. And I think that that's so important, and it helps with branding. Bonus points here again, because he has the prices, which we'll get into in a minute. But branded apparel, it can go a long way, and it's something you can sell, which I'll get to in a minute. Here's another example. The markets I work with usually don't allow dogs. So I was like, oh, a dog is at the market table near food, but each market's different. But this is a great example of branding. They've got the t-shirts, the banner, the blue tablecloth. So it's blue, blue, blue. So another great thing about branded apparel is if it looks really good, people want to buy it. So if you come up with a really cool logo and it's something that, you can run it by your friends, like, would you wear this on a hat or on a t-shirt? You can sell merchandise and you can actually make income that way. So that's another reason to really invest in your logo, because if it's good enough, people are going to want to wear it. And remember, it doesn't need to be complicated in this big work of art. It can be just something clever or funny or beautiful. But you can sell things like tote bags, bandanas, t-shirts, bumper stickers. The other thing is with branded merchandise is you can use it for giveaways. So if you want to collect email addresses, hang your t-shirt, not your t-shirt, but a t-shirt or a hoodie up in your booth, and then say, give us your email and be entered to win this. We'll give it away next week at the market. When you do that, though, just make sure they can still enter to win without giving you their email address. It's just a legal thing you have to do. But branded apparel is a great way to get the word out about your business, because people walk around with your hat on or your t-shirt. They become walking billboards. So that's why branded apparel is important. Last, for branded things you might want to have at the market would be takeaways. So freebies, things that people can take. This is a project we did a few years ago for the Sullivan Catskills Farmers Markets, and we let vendors use these recipe cards and set them out. But if you want to brand your own, so, Erica might have a recipe out for lavender cupcakes or something. So setting it out, giving something that people can take away. Another clever thing is a postcard. I don't know, when we go to New York City a few times a year, we'll, eat at a semi-fancy restaurant, and they'll always have a postcard they either leave with the check or at the hostess stand. And it's always a really cool postcard. I never send them, but sometimes I'll take it with me, put it on my fridge, and it reminds me of, that time we spent too much on dinner and why my checking account is low. But it's a fun way to stick around after they've left your booth. So postcards are kind of a clever thing you could do. You can do prep tips, product storage, price lists. So if you, maybe with meat and eggs, a lot of times they'll put a price list out because things are kept in coolers. So pre-orders, if you want to encourage pre-orders, that would be a good thing to do as well. Laminated information is another way to keep people engaged. Let's say you're really busy. It's something they can look at while they're waiting. So produce seasonality is great. Again, some of those prep tips, but laminate it and let it sit there. It could even be an interesting things to do in the area. If you were featured or your business was featured in the media, print that out, laminate it. And then it looks like I can get this next section done probably in about 15 minutes. And I'll pause here though for questions or comments. Nothing? Okay, we'll dive right in. So I've also found, I've been working with farmers at farmers markets for close to 15 years now. And there is another attitude I've noticed sometimes, which is that by just showing up to the market, that's enough, that your work is over. You're by being at the market, you are selling products. And that is not true, because you are not the only person at the market. You are not probably the only farmer offering goods that you have. There's probably 4 or 5 vegetable vendors, or if you sell soap, there's always a few soap vendors. So you're not the only one there. And plus, even if you were, wouldn't you want to sell more? I mean, you're there to make money unless this is a hobby for you. You know, you're there to make a living, and you're there to increase your sales. And it doesn't mean that you're being slimy or a car salesman, but there are things you can do to make more money at the market. And yes, you know, branding plays a big part of that, as we'll see. So I love this story. This came out about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a farm in I think it was the Maryland area. And it was a Stacy and Casey, which I think is so cute. It was a couple. And they were farm managers at the farm called Mojo Farms. And they kind of revamped this farm. This is a picture of their booth. And they put some things into play. So they always made sure things were well stocked and colorful. They had signs, as you can see there, just to the point, pricing, informative, this is what it is. And they were friendly. They were nice to people. They smiled. They chatted. They were kind. So they helped bring sales to 5,000 or 6,000 per market. This is a huge market. So, you know, I know in New York State, some of our markets are a little smaller, but this was a very large market. Apparently they left this, the Mojo Farms, and sales went down to like 3,000 after they left, because they had this magic touch, and it wasn't even that magical. It was just, they took care, and they took pride in what they were doing. So, I always love to, I noticed this before, if you look in the back, there's 2 women that look very jealous of the business they're doing. So this just illustrates when you make an effort, you're going to see return. You really will. And always remember to be the purple cow. So try and stand out with what you do. So the first thing that you want to do when you're actively selling at the market is invite the customer into your booth. It's called the 10-4 rule. When someone's about 10 feet away, you want to make eye contact. With COVID, maybe 12 feet away. You want to smile. You want to be like jovial and upbeat. Even if you're really tired, smile. And then when they're 4 or 6 feet away, you want to say something. And it doesn't need to, hey, come on in. You know, you can just say, hey, how are you today? Or beautiful day. So, you know, you want to say something when they're close. And I think especially with the masks on, it's going to be important with the making eye contact to really smile, because you always can tell someone's smiling with their eyes, for the most part. So that's the 10-4 rule. This is something that can help you remember behavior. So what you do when, even if things are slow, you want to be doing these 4 things. And remember, perception's reality. So even if you're slow and the market's just, it's a rainy day and business is slow, you want to look like things are active and you're really upbeat and peppy. So the first, you know, make it a bash, make it a party. You know, whenever I say that, I always picture like a disco ball at your booth, but why not? That could be really fun. Anyway, you want to always be busy. So that's what the busyness is. You want to be moving around. And that does 2 things. It shows people you care, that you are active and you're moving. And it also is going to keep you energized. So you're not just sitting looking at your phone. The next thing is attitude. So you, again, I emphasize this, even if you're tired, it's rainy, sales are down, you want to act as if things are going great, because it will show on your face. Smile. Again, that's really important, because with our masks, you can still see eyes that are happy and smiling. You don't want to hover. So no one likes going into to a booth and having someone breathing down their neck. I know there's been a lot of information lately about don't squeeze the produce, or you can have a tongue-in-cheek thing that says, hands off. We taste better when, hands have been all over. Something cute and clever. I'm sure you could brainstorm something, but at some point people are going to pick up your food. And they're going to pick it up and inspect it. And it's just going to happen. If you're hovering and staring someone down, it is going to impact your sales. People feel watched, and they also feel uncomfortable. Like, oh God, what? It's just, hovering is, we all know what it's like. It's maybe you're at a store where someone works on commission and you just feel someone hovering. You just want to get the heck out of there and you don't want to buy. So those are sort of the 4 rules for interacting in your booth. I don't know what farm this is. This is a great example of what not to do. Everyone's kind of sitting, leaning, looking everywhere but straight ahead. We've got someone on their cell phone. We've got food and snacks out. Pretty much everything. And you can see customers. You can see their hands right there. So, I mean, there are people there that should be attended to. I'll give this guy credit down here in the yellow shirt. He blends in with the sunflowers. I think he's getting some products for someone. But these 3 people should be, fluffing, buffing the table, rearranging things. Right now, they just look bored. So anyone walking by is going to say, oh, they're too busy for me. They're not going to be able to get my products. I'm not going to bother stopping. I don't want to wait around. So now we're going to get into some more merchandising. One of the best tricks is to, and when I say tricks, you're not being deceitful, because chances are let's say this, person, obviously they specialize in corn. They probably got a full truck of corn, but they're not going to put it all out because it's going to get spoiled. It's going to get opened. And, but what they've done is they've created an illusion of abundance. So those crates are not completely full if you look closely. They're just showing a few open. And that's also nice too. They've opened those up. So hopefully that's going to deter people from opening up the corn. But the mantra is pile it high and watch it fly, which is true. People love to see abundance. But again, as farmers, we know that we don't want to leave it out and let it spoil. So using false bottoms is one way. It's trickier here with corn, but I'll show you in a minute how to use false bottoms. This also will encourage you to stay busy, because if you have false bottoms, or you're just doing it for a display, anytime someone buys something, you have to restock. So it forces you to be busy. Another way to say it is stack it up to rack it up. So we've got a pile of radishes here. Again, the pumpkins look abundant like this. Instead of just stacking, I see at the market all the time, pumpkins just stacked on the ground. And it just does not look abundant. It doesn't look like there's a lot. This is so eye-catching. I wouldn't be surprised if someone has the kids stand in front of it and you take a picture, and that's good publicity for you. Here are some examples of creating 3D displays. So bringing the eye up and down and side to side. So when you do that, you make the eye move all around. It actually stimulates your brain and makes you slightly, more excited. It's like when you walk. That's why window displays are so popular. They get your eye moving, and that in turn gets you more excited and in the buying mood. So I've seen a lot of crates stacked up like this. I think that's really effective. It just looks pleasing. Baskets are really useful. Crates are excellent, but creating height and creating depth and getting the eye to move all around is what you want. Color, I always want to see more of this, especially from produce vendors. Rainbow order, like putting things in rainbow order, that will just draw the eye. You'll end up on Instagram with that sort of a display. This was the closest I could find online. But just putting things in rainbow order, and again, stacking things just looks so alluring to the eye. Radishes keep making an appearance for a reason. That color, that bright pink, is really eye-catching. And if you can put that out or put a really bright product out front, that'll draw the eye in. So this is an important thing to think about if you are selling multiple products. I think you can get away with having a lot of products when you're selling produce. So, you're not going to want to limit the amount of products you sell, because people do want multiple types of vegetables. But if you feel like you need to sell it all to be successful, the studies show the opposite. And this was from a TED Talk, but a grocery store was offering 24 types of jam to sample one day. And the next day they offered 6 types of jam. So then they compared the sales on each day. So the question is, which day had more sales of jam? When there were 24 types, only 3% of people bought jam. And then when there were 6 types, 30% bought jam. So the logic of this is when you give people too many options, they shut down and they walk away. And I think we all can relate to that. If you're in a store and you just see too much of one thing, you just walk away, or you just grab without thinking. So kind of the moral of the story here is that you don't need to go overboard with a lot of different products. You aren't going to be more successful by offering more variety. Maybe sticking to some of the things are the best varieties. So maybe if you grow tomatoes, you want to have some cherry tomatoes and maybe some beefsteak or some heirloom varieties. You don't want to have 5 heirloom varieties unless you are a tomato only vendor. Then, okay, fine, go nuts with the heirlooms. But you just don't want to give people too many options because they get overwhelmed. So this is this is my own, I found a study to back it up, but the other problem with too many products is quality control. So if you're harvesting all these different products, you got to have signs for everything. You got to keep track of pricing. So it's going to make your job a little harder too. So that's just some insight on the product mix. We did some surveys at the Sullivan Catskills Farmers Markets about 4 years ago, and I can't tell you how many comments people made about not having pricing out on products. It really upsets people because, as this was a quote, she feels like a dummy when she has to ask how much things are. And so the most important thing I would say is, get your brand on a sign like this. Get your brand on a laminated sign, and then you can write the price in. So it's easy, quick, and the signs are attractive and waterproof. But you always, always want to have prices out. The last tactic would be bundling up. So creating package deals like, a CSA that's just, CSAs obviously are trending right now with the weekly box of produce, or sometimes there's meat CSAs. But what if you as a vendor created a market day CSA? So you just bundle up the products you sell in a box and offer it for $30 or whatnot. You could just have one example sitting out. And then if people say, yeah, I want the CSA box, you just fill it up, right there. So that might be a way to encourage a bulk purchase. Bulk discounts are always great. So, buy five tomatoes for $5, or they're $1.50 each. So something that encourages that bulk buy. Bulk discounts are really helpful. I've been seeing this a lot, and I love this idea. I don't think I would spend $9 for that herb bundle, but you could try, maybe $7. But anyway, I love this. It's an herb bundle for recipes. Like you could do salsa, pesto. This is a curry blend. So you've got all the spices that you would need to make your own curry. I think this is just a great idea. And then if you put the recipe cards out, you're just making, you're making people's lives easier. So it's a convenience and it's attractive, and you're also going to increase your margins. Something like this also can really tie into your brand if you want to kind of go above and beyond just being your average produce vendor at a farmer's market. Now you're providing value. You're showing people how to use all the abundance of produce with creative recipes, with creative herb bundles, or maybe you could put together a spaghetti sauce bundle, or even team up with another vendor like a pasta maker, and you put their pasta in your booth and they put your little pesto bundles in their booth. So getting creative and creating partnerships and being helpful to people can actually become part of your brand. You can be known as, that produce vendor that gives me all these great ideas and recipe cards I collect each week. So that is it for me. And yeah, 10:55. So I made it under an hour. So if we want to have some discussion for the next 10 minutes, or questions or ideas you want to share, we can kind of dive right into that.
I'll just share our 2 comments from the chat, which is general appreciation, I think even more than ever from COVID-19 for smizing. For it.
I like that. I've never heard that, but I love it.
Oh, it's there's some woman, I mean, I'm not a real pop culture person, but I heard her on All Things,
yeah.
Her on Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Yeah.
There's an influencer she was up all night trying to think of a word, and she came up with smizing.
I love it.
And it's perfect. And you can sort of tell if you look at people, their mask on, you can sort of tell they're smizing.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great term.
So as masking continues at the market, even more important, just smizing.
And more important too, to be busy, because you could look so indifferent when you're, if you're just standing there, even if you're smiling, if you're just standing there, it might just look like you're like so bored because people don't see you moving. If you're moving, you're showing you care about your business and your customers. So think of it like a workout too. You get a workout. So.
And Erica Rutland shared that most people in Western New York don't haggle.
Oh, they do not. That's great, because that's one of the biggest complaints I get from vendors. They say they can't stand it when people want to, knock you down on pricing and say, okay, can I do this, can I get 10 tomatoes for $10 or whatever they want, or $5. I mean, sometimes they just really try and lowball you, but that's why I was suggesting doing like a bulk discount in advance. So you kind of negate that haggling, or you can say, no, I won't do that deal, but here's a deal for you. So anything you found at the market that has been an effective sales tactic, or a way that you've kind of put your brand out there at the market?
I haven't actually started yet. This will be the first season at the market, but I have, over the years, I originally started selling at Union Square in New York City with a farmer from Ithaca that I worked for. And we had just gotten in, and this was long ago, so it wasn't the same Union Square that it is now. But all I can remember is I loved it, for one thing. And we drove.
That's good. You'll be successful.
In the middle of the night, and we just had an old van, and we didn't have a sign we had none of the things that you talked about, but the stuff just flew off the table. I mean, it was so fast paced. And I know going into this season, I know I need to think more like what you're talking about. And I'm thinking of it more as a show, like I know how to put on a show, and hopefully I'll have enough produce to make a good showing. But I'm a little terrified. I have to admit, I'm a little scared.
I think you'll do. The fact you said you loved it, that right there is, you're going to do great.
I love talking to the people. I loved it when I asked questions. And I actually kind of enjoyed the haggling. And I found that there was a way to convince people to buy even more through haggling. Because if they feel that they're getting a deal from you, they like you because you're having fun with them, then they just buy a lot more stuff. Or they'll come back the next week and you'll see them coming and you'll take it on as here we go. We're the
and that's the double-edged sword with haggling, because once you go low, you're not,
that person will always come back.
You'll be known as the one that gives the great deals on, the cucumbers. And then, so you can build a lot of loyalty, and some farms will build their business on volume, and they'll just sell on volume.
Yeah.
So but you bring up a good point. You said, years ago you did this, and stuff would just fly. Things have changed, and that's what's, even since I've been kind of working with markets, I've seen a shift where, just look at markets, vendors that are taking payments via Square on their cell phone. You can't. Things are changing. Customers almost want you to be like a mini grocer. It's not fair. It's really not. We don't have the $1 million budgets that a Wegmans does to have a merchandiser come in and make everything look great. But unfortunately, the good thing is you're getting more customers to go to the farmer's market. But the bad thing is a lot of them are still expecting this perfect, a mini grocery store. Honestly, that's what they want. They are less tolerant of, damaged or slightly bruised produce. You know, they want, that's not to say, they are accepting, I've found, of, it's actually almost trendy, you know, funny shaped fruits. They don't care if things are uniform. They just want things clean. They want to feel like they're treated like a VIP, that you care about them being there and buying from you. So a lot of it is emotional. And that's where that brand comes in. So you, Brenda, will probably be a big part of your brand, and people will, you know, have a positive feeling because you're friendly and you want to talk to them and share information. So that's great. You have a leg up on a lot of producers. So
that's encouraging, because I'm scared. And I realize that this is my first impression as a farmer. And I haven't grown anything on this land yet, you know, and I'm already signed on at a market. So I'm a little bit, and I'm building my greenhouse now as I'm getting ready to start seeds. And
you know what? You have plenty of
storage shed is coming like the first week in May. So does it really come in time for me to have a CoolBot running before I'm harvesting? You know, I'm building a farm as it's flying, and it's flying.
I think it is important for you, definitely, to really, I would say the most important thing for you to get your name down, and maybe, you know, the colors. If you want to wait on a logo, if you've got a strong name and you've got the colors you're going to use, just stick with those, and you can throw in a logo later. I mean,
I actually have the logo in my mind, and I have a photograph that I've always been obsessed with bees, and I've taken a zillion photographs of bees pollinating flowers. So I want to take one of those photographs and simplify it. I know there's got to be, I know a designer could do it, but I don't know that I have the money for a designer, frankly. So I am struggling with that. But I want to make that into just a simple, round, blue-green plant, white flower, black and yellow bee.
Yep.
Maroon lettering, Bee Wild Farm, and that's it. Yep. And I just want that on.
You know what you might find? I mean, I'm assuming you're going to have to get some banners, some tablecloths. Sometimes when you buy, if you go to a print shop, you know, especially a local one, sometimes to get the sale, they'll design things for free. So you might want it. I mean, I know, or they'll be really cheap. So, you know, if you're going to be buying from, I can shop around, say, I would like a quote for a banner, a tent. You can even maybe ask for a couple other things so they take you more seriously. You know, and then, and you know, their prices may be great and you want to get it at some point. So you're not being dishonest. But once you commit to buying, let's say, the banner and tablecloth, and say, well, I don't have a logo. Do you have access to a designer, or do you offer that as part of the deal? And especially if you're looking for something really simple, then you know, you've got it kind of made. I will say the one thing you're going to want to be careful with, because you don't sell honey.
Yeah, I know.
Is to make sure somehow that you convey that and maybe minimize the bee, or present the bee in a different way.
Well, that's why I'm presenting the bee as just pollinating a wildflower.
And maybe instead of a wildflower, if there's a way, I know the flower comes before the vegetable, you know, like a squash blossom or something that shows a vegetable. Because, you know, if you're selling vegetables, you want to make sure that's somehow incorporated.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Well, actually, the photo I have is a bee. The one I was thinking of using is a bee pollinating broccoli that went to seed. But I don't want people to know that, because I don't want them to think that I let my broccoli go to flower.
You know, yours is tough. I will say yours is tough because, again, if you put too much bee in your logo, then people are going to assume.
Well, I want to make sure there's wild in my logo. So I want to make maybe the silhouette of a meadow that starts at one side and drops off, and not complicated, just a simple line that drops off, and the bee pollinating the flower. But you're right. Maybe I take the bee out altogether.
I'm not sure. The other thing is, what I think is so cool about your name is wild. You don't hear the word wild with farming. You do maybe with, like, you know, like the Aaron Burr Cidery talks about, he uses wild apples, but wild farming, like that in itself, is a great name. I mean,
wild farming is a new sort of trend.
Yeah.
Little known, but I think it's going to become very important. You know, it's not bioregenerative. It's not, you know, this or that, biodynamic or whatever. It's wild. And out of 5 acres, at least 2 of my acres are going to just be wild. And I was going to call it bobolink farm, but because I have bobolinks in the field, I couldn't start production last year because I couldn't mow my field because the bobolinks were nesting. And bobolinks are endangered because people mow their fields so early now that they have no place to nest. So, and they're so beautiful. And I wanted to call it bobolink, and I actually paid to register that name. But when I said it to someone, they would go, "What's that?" And I'd have to tell the whole bobolink story. And it just was like, that's cool. But yet, I could easily have done a bobolink on a logo, but then everyone would look at the bobolink and go, "What's that?" People don't know anymore. I mean, back in the day, people would know what a bobolink is, but they don't.
Yeah, I think
I abandoned that one.
And your customers, you have to think, like I was saying at the very beginning, what your customers' level of education is or understanding of agriculture. And
exactly.
If you go over their heads, they might feel like, this isn't for me. You know, it's such a thin line between educating and sharing interesting information with them or making them feel intimidated. So, you know, I think the way you tell your story doesn't sound intimidating at all. It's just my issue for you would be to make sure you're not confused with honey. That's all. Because let's say people are walking in and there's already a honey vendor.
Yeah.
They may skip your booth altogether and go to the other one, or they may not even know, because if you're at a busy market, they may just pass you by if you're not ready for honey, if they see a bee logo. So,
well, but they're going to see hopefully piles of vegetables.
Yeah, but
you're right.
Yeah. And I think you can do it. I can't figure it out right now. I'm sure there's a way to make the bee part of your, you know, even though we all know this wouldn't happen, is it maybe like a bee on a tomato or on a head of broccoli or something, you know, on a piece of produce, so that the produce is what sticks out. And I don't know. That's where getting someone to help you talk through it, even if it's just someone that you trust to talk through your ideas. But
maybe I could have a little subtitle: Bee Wild Farm, Native Bee Pollinated Produce.
Yeah, that's where you're right. The tagline,
something like that.
Yep, I think and that's interesting because that is very unique. I mean, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of.
And then I could put like a little mason bee house on my table.
Yeah,
and so that's a great mason bee house. They pollinate 75% more of the produce in this country than honeybees, European honeybees.
See, that is your story. I mean, that is fascinating to me, and I'm sure that there's native, you know, pollinators on other farms, but they just don't talk about it. So you're differentiating yourself, and I think that's a great idea. I love that idea.
And I'm planting a lot of orchards, so in the future I'm going to have more fruit than vegetables. I'm not. Yeah. The vegetables are what I'm doing right now because that's.
But that would be great for, you know, like the laminated thing. You want to put all this out for people. So why is your farm called, you know, Be Wild? Well, here's why. And the benefits, you know, what the pollinators do. I mean, explaining that, like, because people don't know that. The average person does not know anything about this. They are going to think honey. So that way, now you've got their interest. So yeah, I think you keep the honey, you keep the bee in the name, you keep it in the logo, but you also somehow got to get the vegetables in there. So
yeah, and if somebody sees my name on a list of vendors, that's where I'm a little bit screwed because that's
why, you know, maybe you say Be Wild.
Oh, good idea.
Vegetables or Be Wild Produce Farm or Be Wild, you know, something in your name. But I like there's a definite story there. So I think you're in the right direction, and just make sure people know you sell vegetables. That's it. That's my only advice. So.
Oh, thanks, Erica. Sorry, I feel like I sort of sucked up the.
No, we talked to Erica for about 5 minutes about her farm name. So okay. Yeah. So, and I think us talking to you is, you know, helping Erica also kind of think about how she wants to present her business. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the other place the B came from is for many years everybody called me Miller B. Nobody called me. So I almost called it Miller B Farm. Yeah. I was trying to think of a way to identify. You know, some people say the Smith Farm or McDonald's Farm or whatever, but I was going to be just Miller B Farm because that's so many people knew me as that name. But
yeah.
Here, but that's like one of those things that it's like my story, but who cares? It's not about the farm, you know.
You know what, though? In a way,
Miller B. Wild.
Miller B. Wild.
Miller B. Wild.
That could have been. Could have been there. And I thought about B. Period Wild, you know, but then that just didn't make sense to me. That just seemed like weird. It didn't really fit the story, and it was just seemed arbitrary.
Yeah, you have a complicated, in a good way. You have complicated parts of your story that you got to just kind of get into, but that is so much, you're so much further ahead than you have a story. A lot of farms do not have a story. They're just, family name farm, the end. And you have this really intricate, interesting story to tell. And I think you just talk it out, keep talking to people. And I think I like the Be Wild because you don't think of the word wild with farming. And I think it's fun. I think it's really fun, exciting, and interesting.
I like
thanks for the feedback. That was,
I wanted to share that I think there's a real appetite for education on native bees right now. And I just started like conventionally beekeeping, which almost feels like outdated when I did it. Or last year, whenever I spoke about it, I found that like almost 50% of at least my audience, which happens to be maybe more attuned to that, was like, okay, but what are you doing about native bees? And so, they weren't even interested in the thing I was talking about because it's like basically monocrop bee farming. So I think that like you have something there to talk to an audience that's really ready to hear what that is, because they're sort of, it's just coming out that like native bees are the most important to this pollination. And so, accoutrements like selling little houses for people, or
that's a great idea.
That's a cool idea, actually.
I like that idea, Ashley, because it's very easy to build. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have them on poles all throughout my farm. So
that is so interesting. I mean, that right there, visually, you've got to take photos of that.
They're really easy to build.
Yeah, and then more native bees. So that's
and I could even bring in some that already have little cocoons inside of them, because it's really cool when they go in and they make their little home. They seal it off with this sort of I don't know, kind of like wool, kind of like a balled up piece of wool. I could bring in one that's full of mason bees and just sit it on.
Yeah. The other thing is, people don't realize that pollinate. People think of bees as just making honey. So you're taking something that, there's millions of vegetable farms, and you're making this, something novel, because people don't think about it. That fruits and vegetables are pollinated, and so it's almost like adding your tagline, like fruits and vegetables grown by bees. Not really, but it's
you have them because of the bees.
Yeah, it's so much. There's so much, like Ashley said, education and interest there. Mm-hmm. So I think you have an interesting challenge of taking you have a big story, whereas a lot of farms have no story at all. So you have the challenge of taking a very intricate and complex story in a way and really getting it down to something a fifth grader would understand. That's what you want to do.
You had great ideas though, like about the laminated information thing. I could just have that from day one.
Yep. Put out why are we called? Why are we Be Wild Farms, or whatever you come up with, and then write that down. So
I'm so glad I took this class. This really.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I was at a panic point in my mind. Because like I said, I'm building the greenhouse right now. I work at Extension 3 days a week. Every other minute of my life, I'm still doing my crop plan for the vet. It's like,
you might remember, I say it's simple doesn't mean simple-minded. Just because your end product is simple does not mean you didn't put a lot of thought into it. But I do believe, that's my own personal belief, is the simpler, the more concise, the more memorable you're going to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for all that. This was so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sometimes think I give people more things to think about, more questions than answers, but oh well.
You need to know the questions first, and that's where I was panicking, you know.
It all leads towards clarity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, I think Erica and Brenda, thank you so much for spending the time with me, and Ashley
Thank
for
you.
hosting. And I can't wait to see what your brands turn out to be. And it's okay to evolve, you know, it's okay to start and build on it. So
yeah.
Erica Rutland, where could someone find your products? I'm not familiar if you're up anywhere yet.
I'm even farther down the path than Brenda.
Okay.
Can I chime in here for
Yes.
a minute? So this is where we are right now. And it's kind of a touchy thing, so I'll just keep it in a closed group. We have one dairy goat who's producing milk, and there's an ad on Craigslist and selling it with the profit standard. And actually, I just sent Erica a text. We have a dairy goat, and I found the meat goat, and I'm going to crossbreed them. Then she's got rabbits that are, within a couple months, they're going to be processed by a certified butcher and be available for sale. So at the moment, we're furthest along on livestock.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just figuring out where you want to be in the future will help you. So even if you're right now kind of livestock focused, but you think you're going to end up being more goat cheese focused, that's a really good point. Actually, is when you think about your brand, you want to leave room for expansion or change. So if you're not sure exactly what you're going to sell, you might want to keep your brand a little bit more generalized because of that.
Can I ask a question that might not, this is not direct to this particular format as far as marketing?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So, a marketing question, but it's not branding related. We sort of adopted the goat, and it was in milk, and so we were like, well, this is what we got, so let's do it. Now I'm finding out that there are, I can't sell goat cheese. I don't think that it's legal to sell goat cheese in New York State. I mean, I make it. It's in my refrigerator. It's very good.
And friends take it, and they think it's great. And
well, it's legal. You just have to go through. In fact, Cornell can help you with that. Go through the process. There's all sorts of, license. I mean, Ashley, I can't speak to the.
You just have to use a dairy processor, so you can't do it at home.
Yeah.
So you can rent a kitchen. I mean, like the Cornell Cooperative Extension has, I believe their kitchen is.
Well, I think for dairy, like base product, like so you could make certain cheeses probably, and then so like farmer's cheese. But you'd have to clarify this with our. We have a Cornell expert that kind of does it, but that's like prepared foods. Dairy industry.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're
on a different level. It's the same as meat production. So you have to go to it's basically like government regulated. So it's Department of Health here in the county. It has to be a certified dairy processor. And so it's a big stranglehold on the industry. This is not like new everyone. So people either invest in doing it themselves at home, partner with someone who has one, or as you see with most conventional dairy, they sell to a co-op or like U.S. Dairy Co-op. So we could talk more about that if you have some strategies into like products that are more approachable because you don't have to go through that. And there are a few soft cheeses basically. And then you could partner or you could go a different way in terms of producing it in an actual production facility.
Could you type a contact person at Cornell into the
chat? I'll do that right now. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll follow up on that later.
Okay.
Thank you.
What really appealed to me in all of this is the number of different people who are coming to us saying, Are you going to sell those rabbits? What are you doing with those chickens? Brenda has something to say. No,
she just has to pop off.
Okay.
Yeah, I think with your farm, Erica, is just, it's okay to be a generalist, just like there's produce farmers that have a lot of different vegetables and fruits. You can have a lot of different livestock, and maybe it's going to change year to year, and you could still use your name, the Goonie Bird name, because sometimes your brand just becomes who you are, and then you give it meaning. So, you don't have to decide all of that right now, but you do definitely want to have a brand for your farm.
Okay.
And if it sounds like in general you're sticking with either meat or cheese or eggs, so having a bird or having some sort of animal integrated in your logo makes sense, since you're going to stay in that vein. So
there's a wonderful ad for a business near me. I think they're plumbers, so it's kind of random, but it's an Irish family that started it, and they have this duck resplendent with one of these Irish hats, and that's the logo, and that's the direction that I'd like to take it in. It just, we have the proud Canadian duck or whatever with an Irish hat on, and it's random. So that's kind of what I'd like to do. Yeah,
I think it's what you make of it, and remember, you making it memorable and consistent and then you give it the meaning. So that's where you integrate your story in the products you sell. So if Goonie Bird, even if you don't end up selling any poultry or eggs, you said that's just fun, it's humorous and lighthearted, and maybe that's just how you present yourself at the market. You're fun, you're humorous, you're lighthearted, so that's okay. It's fine. Brands can be kind of irreverent, as long as they're used consistently and people know who you are. It's okay. So
sounds good.
Yeah, I like the direction. I think it's unique. So put Erica Lynch's. I know it's another Erica, so quite popular today. I put her email address in the chat box if you want to grab that. Just send her an email and ask her that specific question, because she could maybe lead you in some alternative direction. So that's an approachable product. But it's a good question.
Yeah,
it gets really confusing, and I'm actually
I was like, you can
challenged to explain it to people.
Yeah, they're like, go ahead, go in the Catskills kitchen, but it needs to be a dairy processor.
I'm very near quite a few dairies just on the other side of the county line. I'm in Erie County, which is really almost punitive again with farmers and with dairies. But just on the other side of the county line, we have Wyoming County, which is really good to dairies. Also, I'm not very far from East Aurora, where there's another cooperative extension. So I'll try to work with those folks.
Okay.
And I have to step off, but
thank you.
Thank you for joining me. And again, Ashley, thank you.